Welcome back to the Outlet Podcast with Erik and Gabe.
Hey, Gabe, how you doing?
Gabe. I'm doing well, Erik. Doing very well. So we thought we'd start out with some current news.
Yeah.
Erik, what do you know about Iran and what's going on there?
Well,
with
Soleimani,
is that his name?
It's been about 13 days since Soleimani was killed in Baghdad, right? And basically what happened was he was going to Baghdad to negotiate with the new Iraqi government on a variety of issues. You know, the main issue is rooting out ISIS from the country, because even though they don't hold any territory anymore, there are still, ISIS cells, there are ISIS terrorists. And so he was going there to negotiate that sort of stuff with the new Iraqi government. And the U.S. did a drone strike at the Baghdad airport, killed him and 4 Iraqis. And it basically, sent the Middle East into, sort of a chaotic spiral, right? Where everyone was like, oh, fuck, World War III is going to happen. Mm-hmm. Iran's going to go to war with the U.S.
Well, I do know that there were so many people at the funeral, like throughout many, many cities.
Yeah,
millions and millions
and millions of people.
Okay,
right?
so what I heard was that the Iraqi government, or Iran, right?
Yeah,
Iran.
yeah.
The Iran government was actually forcing people to go to these funerals.
Yeah.
And that they would go, well, my sources might be wrong.
Oh, right.
But
right,
they were going to people's houses and saying, hey, you going to the Soleimani funeral? And if they said no, they would kill him.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
All right. Well, I mean, I think that, the funeral and, the amount of mourners is probably like the least important aspect of this story.
Yeah.
Right? Like first let's give a broad overview of who Soleimani was and what he did for Iran and how he affected the Middle East. So basically, over the past, 30, 40 years or so, Iran has been able to get tons of allies and tons of proxy militias across the Middle East by basically being the financial backer and the military backer of all Shia militias in the Middle East, right? So should we go back to the split between Shia and Sunni Islam?
Or let's go all the way back.
That's all the way back. All right, let's go all the way back. Right?
We got a lot of time.
So I think it was Muhammad's grandsons. Hussein, I think, was one of them. And I forget the other one's name, but anyway, they got killed in a battle called the Battle of Karbala, and basically that was where Islam split, right? So the Shia Muslims believed that all caliphs needed to be directly descended from Muhammad, right? So it was only those first couple caliphs that were rightful caliphs, and everyone after that was a fake caliph, right? But Sunni Muslims believed that those next 7 caliphs or something. All these numbers are bullshit. I'm kind of just estimating, right?
No, that's fine.
The next 7 caliphs were rightful caliphs. They were extremely powerful, extremely, they expanded Islam across the Middle East into North Africa, right? So Sunni Islam basically remained the dominant form of Islam. It was the government-sanctioned form of Islam, whereas Shia or Shiite Islam was sort of these weirdos that were, ultra orthodox and hidden off to the side, always cursing the caliphs and cursing these powerful caliphs, right? And that split has continued until today, right? And so in the Middle East, the majority of the Muslims are Sunni Muslims, but in almost every country, there's a Shia minority, right? So, like in Lebanon, for example, there's a Shia minority, right? And that minority has become represented by a militia group called Hezbollah, right? And Iran, in order to win allies, has basically become the defender of Shia Islam in the Middle East. So anytime there's a Shia militia that's fighting against a Sunni majority, the Iranians come in with money, they come in with weapons, they come in with financial backing, and basically support their fight, right? So the civil war in Yemen, right? It's the Houthis versus the government, right? Mm-hmm. The Houthis are a Shia minority, they're ethnically different, right? So Iran says...
So the Sunnis are the majority?
Sunni, pretty much everywhere, except for in Iran, of course. Shia is the majority. Religion.
So
and
is there
in Iraq,
there's racial tensions, right?
I mean,
they're all.
It's usually drawn along ethnic lines, right? Who's Shia and who's Sunni. But like in Iraq, for example, pretty much everybody's Arab, right, ethnically, but the lower half of the country is Shia and the upper half of the country is Sunni, right? So that's an area where the Iranians come in and they back all the Shia militias, and Saudi Arabia basically comes in and backs the Sunni militias.
Okay, so is it also political too? Because do they govern differently as well?
I mean, at the end of the day, no, like they're all pretty oppressive, ruthless regimes, right? Whether it's Hezbollah or Bashar al-Assad, right? And Saudi Arabia, for example, that's the biggest funder of the Sunni militias,
and they have a ton of money.
And they also like chop off people's heads and shit,
yes,
right?
They do, yeah.
So it's hard to say like if anyone's a good guy in this situation, right?
Yep.
It's just this 1,000-year-old feud, right? But it's to the advantage of the Iranian government to capitalize on that feud and back their side, basically, because it buys
for
them
like
allies.
Political expansion? No, allies. Okay.
It buys them allies, right? So Iran, when the Islamic Revolution first happened in the 80s, and the current regime came to power, they were completely isolated, right? They didn't have allies in the Soviet Union. They were America's biggest enemy in the Middle East, right? Saddam Hussein was fighting them. They were basically isolated, right? And over these past 30 years, Soleimani has orchestrated all of these allies, right? And so now Iran is extremely powerful across the Middle East, right? Bashar al-Assad in Syria is a strong Iranian ally. Currently in Iraq, the Shia militias that are backed by Iran hold a significant amount of the Iraqi parliament, and the Iraqi parliament recently voted to expel all U.S. troops from Iraq, right? And in Lebanon, Hezbollah is the second biggest political party. They hold a significant amount of the Congress there.
A lot of power.
Yeah, and Hamas in Gaza is backed by Iran, right? So they've got all these proxy groups across the Middle East that sort of form a buffer zone between Iran and its enemies, right? And I don't know, and basically Soleimani was the architect of all of that, right? He was the one that, has been thinking long term, right? We got to think 30, 40 years in advance, right? We got to back these little militia groups, even though they seem like just a bunch of teenagers with guns in the desert. These guys will one day become a powerful political force in their corresponding countries.
Huh.
Yeah.
So why would the United States care at all about Iran, Soleimani?
Right.
Is it for oil? Okay.
That's it.
That's it? That's the only reason?
That's
okay,
the
so...
the only reason we have allies and interests in the Middle East, right, is because oil, as Americans, we obviously know America's addicted to oil, right? We all drive these big gas-guzzling SUVs.
Sure.
All of our industry is based on oil, right? All of the transportation, all the trucks run on oil, right? So
everything that's pretty much produced in America... Oil was involved one step
at some point, right? Yeah. But more importantly, it's a national security issue, right? Because without oil, America's military cannot function.
The economy also collapses too.
Right, exactly. But for America, having access to oil is a national security issue, right? So if our oil gets cut off, we can't fight a war, right?
Yeah.
Our planes can't fly where they need to fly. We can't transport our troops.
So that would go back to the industrial military complex.
Exactly.
Right? Which is what I think Lyndon B. Johnson warned about. So my understanding of it is that we dump so much money into the military that we are more likely to get into wars in order for the military to somewhat pay back the amount of money that we dump into the military.
Totally. It's this vicious cycle, right, where we spend billions and billions of dollars every day, really. I mean, we spend $700 million a day in the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan.
Like $2.3 trillion in the military last year?
It's insane, man, the amount of money we spend. And so, of course, we got to justify that use of money. So, we find enemies at every corner, right? And I mean, I think it's really bad, man. Like,
well, and also in America, I don't want this to come off bad.
Yeah, of course.
But continually talk about freedom. Right? We talk about how America has to be kind of the guy who stands up to the bullies in the world,
Police,
the
right?
world police. That's right. And it's propagandized, right, in America that we fight for freedom, right? America has no, They don't care about the freedom of the world.
Not at all.
Not at all. We don't care about the freedom of the world. All we really care about is expansion.
Yeah. And American business interests.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Protecting
when
our economy.
Coca-Cola gets their plant shut down, that's when the American military steps in.
Yeah.
Not when there's a massacre. Because, all these countries that we go out against, sure, they're bad, right? Saddam Hussein was a horrible dictator. And Iran is authoritarian, and the people aren't free. Women are forced to wear hijabs. But you know what else is a bad country? Eritrea. Right? That is a horrible dictatorship where people aren't allowed to leave, and the police come and bust down your door and take your family if you criticize the government. But what have you heard about it?
I haven't heard anything about it. I couldn't even point it out on a map.
Because they're an American ally, right? And they allow American businesses to come in and do whatever they want. They come in and take the country's oil, right? And as long as they, basically bow and bend the knee to America, they're out of our news. We don't bother them, and it's fine, right? So I mean, I think that the freedom justification, it always has some basis in truth, right? The countries that we invade are usually not great countries to live in, but if that's the only justification, right? If a country is authoritarian or repressive, that means we should go to war with them. Man, we'd be at war with 3/4 of the world, right?
Yeah.
Me as an American taxpayer, I'm not willing to go to war, right? And especially, a young draftable man, I don't want to go to war with any of these fuckers, bro. Yeah. I mean,
you're fighting for oil for the rich,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous.
Well, okay, I want to say this as well. So, the military, most of the people in the military believe that they're fighting for justice and freedom. And it is completely misleading, right? Completely misleading. What you're really trying to do is gain influence in the world, right? I think that's the primary goal of the United States military, is to gain influence in the world. Just think about how many military bases we have throughout the entire world. Our influence is crazy.
Yeah.
And it's been growing ever since the end of World War II, right? That was the big rush between the Cold War,
exactly.
USSR and America was who can gain the most influence in the world, right? And we had the Marshall Plan. We were giving a crap ton of money to Europe. Why? Why would we ever do that?
By allies, right?
Yeah, by allies, by influence.
Yeah, and we're still doing that to this day. I mean, look at how much money America gives to Israel every single year in just a blank check. Like literally just giving them money. I think
because they're surrounded by all our enemies, right?
Yeah, hundreds of billions of dollars every year just giving it to them, right? And yeah, it's is it going to pay off? Is it going to pay off? I don't know. I mean, I think that American businesses certainly profit from that, right? They have super technologically advanced country in the Middle East that allows them, American companies to come in and, engage in their market, right? But if you take a step back and you say, do American businesses actually represent the American people, right? Are those interests actually aligned, right? In a lot of ways they are, right? Because, when American businesses do well, they expand, they grow, they hire more people. That ends up coming back down to the American worker. But you can also look at it from another perspective and say, listen, these businesses are controlled by an extremely small portion of the American population, right? And so what goes to benefit American businesses goes to benefit that really, really small section of the population who then use that money and power to further benefit their interests, right? To further promote tax loopholes and deregulation and privatization, right? Which comes back to hurt the American worker, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know. It's just, when I hear we fight wars for freedom and all this, it really makes me upset and it really makes me angry because a lot of people actually believe it, right?
Yeah.
They join the military to fight, in these wars against these bad people. But that's not the goal of America, right? We saw that in World War I under Woodrow Wilson, right? With his 12 points and all this, 12 points of democracy and whatever.
Yeah.
I think we only got one of his 12 points. And then the whole United States was upset because my son died in the war, And so it's just so misleading and so wrong of the government to promote we're fighting wars for freedom in the world. And no, it's not the case at all.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, when you look at a lot of the the strongmen dictators that we topple and overthrow. The thing is, when you look at a lot of these countries, when a country's been ruled by an iron fist for 30, 40 years, right? Like look at Libya under Gaddafi, right? That country, it was oppressive, it was restrictive. You couldn't criticize Gaddafi. The people weren't living the best life, but out of all of the countries in North Africa, they had the highest standard of living materially, right? Oil was continuing to flow out of the country. That oil revenue was being spent on welfare programs, improving housing, lots of things, right? And then when you look at what happened after the CIA assassinated Gaddafi, it's been complete chaos. It's been like a 6-way civil war where different militias in the desert just control one little city and one little oil field. And as soon as, they have a crack in their structure, another militia comes in and swoops in and murders everybody and, continues to sell that oil. And, life for everyday Libyans has been complete hell since Gaddafi was assassinated,
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, that's just not something America can do. It's just go in and assassinate a person
and then
things are
step
fine,
out, right? It's democracy now, right?
Yeah,
You guys have a parliament, right?
No, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
Well, it's been in history, right?
Same thing in Iraq, right? Like,
yeah.
Like the Iraqi people, since the fall of Saddam Hussein, right? It's been nothing but chaos and war and destruction by the hands of Americans, by the hands of ISIS, by the hands of Iranian-backed Shia militias. Because the thing is, when you have this really, really strong government, right? And then you wipe it out. There's a vacuum of power. And unless another strong government steps up and takes those reins, there's going to be all these different groups fighting for that power, especially in a resource-rich nation where they can, basically make a ton of money off of the oil in the ground without establishing any sort of real government or any sort of real, legislation or anything like that. Yeah,
because
right?
It's just going to be total chaos over who gets that resource.
Exactly.
Right?
And
people are not going to just, give it up willy-nilly.
Exactly. And if you were part of Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist army, right? And Saddam Hussein has fallen, right? He's dead. The Iraq War is over. Now all of a sudden you're making way less money, right? You don't make your salary anymore. You're still fully armed. You have a contingent of armed, ready to go soldiers. How are you going to continue to make your money? How are you going to continue to feed your family? Yeah. Well, you're going to go into Kirkuk. You're going to, kill the ruling militia there, and you're going to take that oil and you're going to sell it on the black market, right? And that has been the process in pretty much all of these, resource-rich Middle Eastern nations that America goes in and topples the, strongman in, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to come off as a defender of authoritarianism, but in my opinion, life under that anarchy of a lack of government and all these different militias fighting for control over these resources is significantly worse than life under an authoritarian leader.
It's like the lesser of two evils.
Exactly.
Right?
Like life under Saddam Hussein was bad, right? You can't criticize it.
But it's better than the way it is now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But kids went to school, parents had jobs, right? You drove your commute, right? People had lives, right?
Yeah.
But now everything is just in ruins, and
there's no structure.
No structure at all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. A bad structure might be better than a no structure at all. Right. That's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Middle Eastern problem has been really pressing since the Bush 1 administration, right?
But I mean, the thing is, we really shouldn't have any interest in the Middle East. Right?
No,
it's because we're such an oil-dependent nation,
we're
right?
super oil-dependent, and we also spend a crap ton of money on the military.
Exactly.
We got to go around and find more resources and have more influence.
Exactly. But I mean, I think that
Trump,
reducing our oil consumption is a significant, people talk about the Green New Deal as this sort of far-fetched utopian idea. But if we want to stop getting into wars and we want to stop our American servicemen from dying for nothing other than ExxonMobil's profits, we need to reduce our oil consumption.
Well, I mean, it doesn't sound like a bad idea, and of course we have renewable energy now too, which is kind of putting a plug in all that. But did you hear what Trump recently said? He said that we're no longer oil dependent in the Middle East. And that is just a straight up lie.
Just lying. He's just lying out of his ass at this point.
That is a straight up lie.
Yeah.
There's no way that we're completely oil dependent. Oil dependent. It's just not true.
It's a bold faced lie right there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, that's what these wars in the Middle East are all about, is oil.
Yeah.
And it's been known for so long, too. And people are still promoting that we're fighting these wars for freedom and all
Yeah,
this.
for freedom and anti-terrorism.
And
right?
anti-terrorism,
But
yeah.
but the thing is, every time an American serviceman goes in, kills some terrorists or whatever, first of all, there's always casualties outside of the intended casualties. We can agree on that, right? When there's a drone strike, it's not just, people in the Taliban that are dying. It's women, it's children, it's young kids, right?
It's the stampede that happened at the funeral. Did you hear about that? 56 people died in a stampede at the funeral.
Really?
Yeah. That's a repercussion, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, what that does is just breeds more anti-American terrorists, right? Because if you're a young man, right, you see your uncle and your dad and your mom all get murdered by Americans. It doesn't matter, that the country's more free now and we have a democracy. You are anti-American for life, right?
Yeah.
And if you get the opportunity to stick it to America by joining ISIS, you're gonna fucking do it,
Yeah.
Like, it's
Man, that's a good point.
it just breeds more. Like, every time we go in and we think we slice out that terrorist part of the population, that slicing maneuver just creates double the amount of terrorists.
Man, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you don't think about that at all. You think, oh, we've removed the terrorists, but we've created more terrorists by the family members.
Exactly.
Man. Yeah.
I mean,
Jeez.
I mean, I would hate to be one of the military commanders fighting the war in Afghanistan.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh
Because
yeah. Afghanistan is unconquerable.
Unconquerable, right?
You know how many countries have tried to conquer Afghanistan?
Every
Seriously.
superpower has tried and failed,
It
right?
failed.
Right? And we've been fighting this war for I don't know, almost 20 years now.
Yeah,
right?
long time.
And we have made zero progress at all. I mean, we've killed a lot of people. We've tried to build highways, right? And we tried to establish a democracy, right? But the country is just so isolated, right? It's these, valleys basically surrounded by these super, super tall mountains. And, all the money pretty much comes from opium farming.
Yeah.
And there's no real way to rule that country from across the world. America is never going to be able to rule it, and it's just it's like puncturing a hole in the water tank of our money. It's just draining our money, right? And we spend something like $700 million a day occupying Iraq and Afghanistan, right? Imagine if we took $700 million a day and put it into America, right? Like, not even talking about welfare programs and, I don't know, paying off kids' lunch debt, right? Which is ridiculous that we have that. Or I don't know, building infrastructure, even if it's just investing it into American businesses. Imagine how much better life in America could be. Right?
Yeah, well, and of course the goal is just to gain influence over the world, right? And let's just say we took that 700 million and put it into, the economy.
Right.
Or wouldn't we'd be reaping the benefits maybe 10 years from now, 20 years from now?
Yeah.
And maybe even would gain more influence if that's still America's goal later.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're talking about buying influence in the world, I think we should really copy China's strategy, right? Like they have
go to Africa and
the
set
One
up
Belt, One
water,
Road, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania, Kenya, pretty much all of East Africa there are strong Chinese allies now because they have built them high-speed railways, they have built them new factories, they have revolutionized their agriculture, right? And all of that isn't not military at all, right?
No, it's just straight up money.
Exactly. It's just taking that money and investing it into viable, realistic projects that result in the GDP increasing in that country and the investors receiving a little bit of interest at the end of the day.
Really what we're talking about in a broad scale is the continuation of colonialism. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like, at the end of the day, Ethiopia is kind of a Chinese colony now, right?
Yeah.
So is Laos. So is Nepal. So is Kyrgyzstan, right? All of those countries now are completely indebted to China, right? And so whenever there's a UN resolution that, it's America versus China, talking about the Uyghurs, right? All of those countries vote in favor of China, right? Same, in all these international institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, China is basically buying influence, buying power, while America is just squabbling itself away in military conflicts in the Middle East.
And it sounds like China's going for a sustainable route, and then America's going for something that's kind of expedient. And,
Yeah, exactly. We want fast results, fast enemies, and if there's someone we don't like, our only solution is to kill them, right? Whereas China says, hey, we can buy their favor, right? They don't like us. Here's $100 million railway. You like us now? Not yet. Oh, here's $100 million factory. Like us now? Oh, here's a new port, right? And eventually, they're a Chinese ally. You know?
Man,
Yeah.
that's also very sustainable too.
Exactly, and it benefits both countries. Now China has a new market to sell its goods into. Those
To
goods
also
can make it
extract
into China.
resources from, right?
Exactly. Now all of a sudden, all that oil,
Yep.
Sinopec and China Petroleum can just come in there and eat it all
Ease.
up, right?
Yeah. Man.
It just seems, I don't know. In my opinion, it just seems like America's making bad mistakes when it comes to foreign policy.
Bad economic,
Yeah, right?
economic,
Just bad moves. Bad moves.
bad moves. That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. America, it really seems like we have no business really being in the Middle East at all, and we're kind of making things worse.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but the problem is now that we've invested so much money into Saudi Arabia and Israel, we kind of have no choice but to remain there, right? We have
Playing poker
military
or-
bases all over the place.
That's like we're playing
Right.
poker. The river card just get flipped, and then
Yeah.
now we got to bet big to try.
Yeah,
and
oh
bluff.
shit, we gotta keep going. We've been bluffing for 40 years, bro. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. I don't know. But would you be willing to fight a war with Iran? Like
I might get drafted.
Because that's what I'm
here.
saying, bro. We're both 18.
I might not get
We're
a
both
choice,
18.
dude.
We're healthy young men.
Healthy, fit.
Like it's
We're military material.
Yeah, like that's who they swooped up in Vietnam.
Right.
And like
Yeah, the Vietnam War happened. That was purely for American influence.
yeah, exactly. And now they're a strong American ally. Like just because they're anti-Chinese, right? We didn't need to fight that war. Like we I feel like we just got to be a little bit craftier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's other ways to buy allies, and taking all the money that we spent on tanks and bombs and napalm in Vietnam, and if we had just said, all right, you're communist now. Here's a new port. Here's a new railway, right? Allow American businesses to come in and cooperate with Vietnamese communes, right? I feel like, we would have been in the same place we are now, except we wouldn't have lost 58,000 American lives, right? Or much less killed over a million Vietnamese people, right?
Yeah.
Like
That was a really weird situation.
bad situation, bro.
Well, the main fear was just the domino effect, and
Yeah.
Vietnam falls, Australia might fall.
Yeah.
That's closer to home.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyways, I wanted to talk about another topic.
Yeah.
And this has kind of been on my mind, and I think it's kind of funny. So the president makes what, $400,000 a year, right? Less than that, 250 or something like that. I don't know. Some low
not that
number,
high,
right?
yeah.
And these bankers are making like $400 million a year. Okay. And so my question to you is, how much graft do you think is going on
In the banking industry?
not just the banking industry, like America as a whole? Because like I think it was like the 1890s, the Gilded Age, right? You had Rockefeller. He basically ran the United States. Do you think it's still going on today? Like, do you think all the politicians are just being paid by the rich, ExxonMobil and people who have a lot of money who can influence politics in their favor?
I mean, totally. And I mean, I think that
Because how do you prove it? First,
how do we prove it? All right. First of all, let's start with some premises, right?
Okay.
Companies are there to make profit, right?
Yep.
We can say that certain companies have ideologies because their leaders, support.
Or the main goal is to make money.
It's
right?
to make money, right?
That's it.
And if a company decides that the best way to make money is to make a political donation as opposed to making an investment in the company itself, I think that reveals a lot, right? That Bank of America, now I'm pulling these numbers out of my ass, right? But Bank of America chooses to donate, I don't know, $100 million to the Republican Party and $100 million to the Democratic Party. That means that they will make more money off of that $100 million than, I don't know, doing what banks actually do and giving out loans or, building factories or any of that stuff, right? Or if, Monsanto or Pfizer or Amazon or JP Morgan Chase, any of these companies, right? They will make more money off of making that political donation than putting that money into the actual purpose of the business, which I feel like is insane, right? The fact that money can buy enough political influence to sway the laws and regulations in their favor, that they will actually make back more money just because the laws change than them actually doing the purpose of their business, right? So I feel like every single political donation that comes from a company is just proof that company is reaping the benefit of corrupt politicians and a unfair legislative system that allows that money to buy influence, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I think the most basic unradical thing is just to make campaign donations from companies illegal, right? Like, sure, they'll still find loopholes, and the CEOs will do the donations themselves personally or whatever. But like, that's just one easy step where we can say, listen, this is clearly corruption, right? They are making more money by making that donation. That's not the way government's supposed to work.
It's skewing the actual interest of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a massive outlier because I can probably donate $20 to my guy.
Yeah.
And then
they can
donate
million.
20 million.
20 billion even, right?
Yeah, seriously.
It's insane.
And so what it does is it skews the actual interest of the people in favor of a few really rich guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think and you're setting it up to fail because the president's making $250,000 or whatever he's making.
Yeah.
And of course, he has the best interest of America at heart, whatever. Once the money is shown, he's going to do what the money tells him to do, and so. And
what they kind of skew it as is it's a partisan fight, right? That, listen, we know the Democratic Party, we shouldn't take this money from Pfizer. We shouldn't take this money from Monsanto, but it'll help us fight the Republicans, right? And we need that money to fight in the battleground states, right? But at the end of the day, do those partisan fights really matter if the American voter really doesn't get to vote on all that much, right? Because if you think about it, what you actually get to vote on as a voter, you basically have a choice between Democrat and Republican, right?
Or third party.
They never
win.
Right. Third party, right? Gary Johnson.
Independence.
Yeah. But what you actually have a choice on as an American voter is the public difference between the Democratic and the Republican parties, right? So that's issues like abortion, issues like gun control, issues like immigration reform, all those issues that the parties publicly fight each other against, right?
Let me just interpose this real quick. So I'm Catholic, and so in order to keep...
I was wondering if you tack onto it.
Yeah, I just want to interpose this real quick.
Yeah.
Because this is just my politics in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It's very simplistic. Whoever is the pro-life candidate, I must vote for.
Yeah.
Because I'm a Catholic, and I believe that killing babies is wrong.
Yeah,
right?
All
and
right.
that is my voting in America.
Yeah.
As simplistic as it gets, because in order to keep a clear conscience,
you're a one issue voter then.
Yeah, well, I have to be a one issue voter in order to be in line with Catholic Church teachings, right? And so every Catholic must vote that if they are actually truly Catholic and are following the See of Peter, right? Which is, but continue.
Okay. Let's get into it. All right.
It's really as simple as that, Erik.
So
it's really just that simple.
So is it just fetuses' lives that you care about?
Oh, we're getting into like the whole abortion talk
do you
right
care
now,
about do you care about children as well, like kids that die? Does that play into the issue? Because over, I think it's something like 200,000 kids died in the Iraq War, right? Does that factor in to the Catholic calculus? Or the kids in Flint, Michigan, right? Those kids are getting lead poisoning, right? Just by drinking tap water, right? Is that an issue where you say, listen, those kids are dying, we put our foot down? Or healthcare, right? There are thousands and thousands of people in America that die every day because they can't receive the medical help that they need. They can't afford it, right? So they just die, right?
Yeah.
This lady has cancer. She can't afford the bills. Sorry, my family can't pay for it. Sorry, buddy, you're dead, right? Or
I thought there was a system in America where all people must be treated in hospitals.
in an ER room.
In ER, yeah.
Right? If you show up to the ER, you have to get treated. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to hit you with a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 bill.
Well, yeah.
And they do. Like people go into bankruptcy over medical debt at an alarming rate in this country, right? And then all of a sudden you're in bankruptcy, you just can't receive that medical care because you can't pay for it, you know? Like when you go into the hospital, they check that you have insurance. And if you don't have that insurance, they won't treat you.
Yeah.
So people are like...
So yeah, back to your original
there's
question.
Tons and tons of people that die because of American policy, right? Does that factor in to the Catholic calculus, or is it just abortion?
Well, that's a complicated. That's a really complicated question.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you're talking about lessers of two evils, right? We mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
You have to choose which is the lesser, and so you have to actually pull up numbers. I'm thinking this through right now, but it would seem logical that you'd actually have to pull up numbers of how many people die from poor medical attention that they can't pay for. How many people died in, you know, lead poisoning, right? You'd have to pull up those actual numbers. And I actually don't know those, but I would assume that the abortions per year are still more than those issues, right?
Yeah.
And it also would seem that it'd still be treatable, well, not treatable, but it would still be understood by the president of the United States, whether he be pro-life, that those things need to be taken care of. And so...
They're not, by the way.
Well, not
Flint,
right
Michigan
now.
has been 7 years with those lead pipes, right? Yeah.
Okay, but
both
continuing...
Obama and Trump didn't do anything, right?
But continuing, right? Again, I still must vote for the pro-life candidate because if I do vote for a president that's pro-choice, then I'm supporting, even if it's so minuscule an amount, it's still a sin for me to vote for the death of the unborn, right? And so even if the president has some other, you know, bad thing in the Catholic Church, I still have to choose the lesser of two evils. Or I could just not vote at all and just leave it up to the rest of the United States. But I'd have to choose the lesser of two evils. And abortion is the main topic at hand for the Catholic Church. You know, we've been fighting that for a long time.
Yeah.
But I'll get into that another time. But the Catholic Church has actually been supporting abortion, by the way.
Yeah.
In a very direct way too. But as a Catholic voter, you know, my allegiance is not to the United States; it's to the Pope.
Yeah.
And so my allegiance to the Pope is whatever the Catholic Church stands for, and we stand against. And one thing that we stand against very strongly, true Catholics do, is abortion. And so that is very base level. I know it sucks because I'm always going to vote for the person who's pro-choice, even if he you know sucks, right?
Yeah.
In all his other policies. Yeah. But I am a one hot button issue, issue voter. Yeah. But so let me. Okay.
But so let's. I don't know. I'm willing to keep talking about it. All right.
Okay.
Because you know, Socrates says we gotta constantly question our beliefs to make them stronger. Right. I want to make sure that you really believe this. Right.
I do.
So let's imagine a scenario. Right.
Okay.
Me and my girlfriend have had unprotected sex, right?
Okay.
Right? No condom. And there is a chance that she gets pregnant. She hasn't. She's not. But the chance is there, right? If she gets pregnant, do you think that we are obligated to bring that child into the world and raise that child? Because I'm not ready to be a father. I'm 18. I work at Sprouts. You know, I make $200 a week, right? Like, that kid's life is going to suck, and it's going to tank both me and Hannah's lives, right? And we're like upper middle class people that live in Scripps Ranch. We're really privileged, right? Like, imagine the person that's even farther down. You know, like they are on welfare. They haven't been able to get a job, right? This poor young woman gets knocked up, by some dude. The dude leaves, right? Do you think that child should be forced to be brought into this world, right? That this woman doesn't want this child, right? The man is gone, clearly doesn't want this child. This child is not wanted in this world. It doesn't have the resources to be raised. It doesn't have the, facilities necessary to raise a child.
The child doesn't have the resources to be raised. I mean, it seems pretty clear to me that that all children in America can have the resources to be raised healthily. Okay. Yeah. And that's through adoptions, right? And people say that adoption sucks and all this, but the raising of a child is greater than the not raising of a child. Raising is a bad word, but the life of a child is better than the not life of a child. And so if we can agree on that premise, then there's no reason that the child, even if they're going to be brought up in an environment that is potentially bad, they should still have life over not life, because life is greater than not life.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know though. Like, first of all, fetuses can't think, right? So the child's perspective in the case of abortion is out the window, right? The child isn't seeing anything, isn't deciding anything, right? Right? And I feel like there are so many people in this world, much less America, that have been thrust into horrible lives where they are basically, I don't want to say destined to live a shitty life, but if you look at it like statistically, if you're born to a crackhead, right, you're a crack baby, right, and you get born into a family that doesn't have any money at all, not even a family, you just have one mom that lives in a shitty hostel, right, like the life, you can always say, yes, there's a chance that this kid grows up and becomes this wonderful person, overcomes adversity, but most of them don't. Most of them follow in the same footsteps. Most of them turn to drugs at an early age. Most of them are abused by people. Most of them, if they get thrust into the foster care system, they get cycled through horrible family after horrible family after horrible family. Like, I don't think that that's a good life at all. And I feel like if we want, America to improve, like we want, the standard of living to increase, those lives aren't worth living. You know what I mean?
I don't agree that life is not worth living. I think that's our disagreement in this, because if you say that
we've never lived that life, Gabe. Like
that's true.
I don't know. Like from what I see, it through my far perspective, sitting here in Scripps Ranch, like I wouldn't want to live that life. Like going to school wearing the same pair of all the same clothes every day for a whole year. I wouldn't want to live that life, right? I wouldn't want a one parent who didn't go to college, doesn't know how to succeed in life, doesn't know how to help me succeed. I feel like not being born is preferable.
Let's set the emotions aside.
Yeah.
Right. Let's set the emotions aside. Yeah. Let's look at this purely logically. All right. So there is. So
by the way, I was wondering how long it would take for us to get into this topic. It's like
we got into
4 or 5
it
episodes.
Today.
Yeah,
4 or 5 episodes in, and now we're talking about it. Yeah. Okay. So if we see all abortions as a potential human, right? So not even saying that the fetus is a human, but we can agree that all fetuses could be a potential human, right? Then the potential human's life could be determined by their environment, right? Us, we're living in Scripps Ranch. We have a very comfortable, nice life. But that crackhead lady might have a child who may have a terrible environment. So understanding that, we could also entertain the idea that potential human's life from the crackhead could actually do something that is positively impacting the world and is meaningful, right? And so the chance that happens, doesn't matter how minuscule it is still substantial. And so to say that because the odds are against them, they shouldn't be born at all, I don't think is I think it's an assumption, right? I think it's not a good assumption.
Yeah.
It's a bad premise.
Yeah.
Because even if they potentially could have something good happen to them, right? They should still be born. Okay. So that's my take on the first thing that you said.
Yeah.
So, and also, I'd like to bring this up too. If you can say that if the situations surrounding a person, right? They can, okay, let me step all the way back here. Let me step all the way back.
Of course. We're treading on thin ice here.
Yeah, it's just a difficult talk about.
It's a difficult topic,
yeah,
right?
It's hard to reason. You know? It's really hard to reason.
Yeah.
So they're a potential human. Okay. Without how they were conceived, set that aside. They're a potential human. And if you say that all potential humans can contribute in a meaningful way on Earth, then they should be born. I think the discussion, I think that's a good place to start the discussion, and also a place to build upon it, right? So if they can impact the world meaningfully, then they should be born, no matter how minuscule it is, right? So, you know, talking about all the circumstances surrounding it, I don't think it's I think it's superfluous. I think if they have the ability, which all fetuses do, to become a potential human that is good to the world, they should be born. They should be born.
Right. But so let's take that one step further, right? And so let's say, you know, all these potential humans have the potential to improve the world. So do you think that as soon as people are sexually viable, they should start cranking out people as fast and as often as possible?
Not.
Because all those kids could help the world. So every family has 10 children. I don't know, man. Like yes, they all have the potential, right? But statistically, like, those parents made the decision that we don't want a kid, right? And I feel like they should have the ability to enforce that decision, right? So, like, you know, the 14-year-olds that are funneling around in the back of their car, you know, trying out sex, right? They're not ready to be parents. They don't want to be parents. They're just trying to have sex. Like I feel like, you know, you shouldn't be, you know, held responsible for bringing all these kids into the world, you know? Like, yes, they all have the potential to do something great, right? But chances are they won't, right? And especially if the parents don't want the child, right? If that's a child that is not wanted in this world, their parents aren't ready, they don't want the child. That's
why adoption's set in place. And there's a lot of parents who have problems, you know, conceiving. They really want a kid, and so they go to, you know, they go and adopt a kid, and they have a happy family, right? And I'm not saying the majority even end up that way. I'm just saying that it happens. And so, you know, if
there is the chance, right? But there are more children that need adoption in the world than families that are adopting. We can agree on that, right? There are
I don't know the numbers, but
there are orphanages.
That probably
there
sounds...
are orphanages and there are foster kids, right? That in itself shows that there are unwanted kids in this world that don't have a family, and you know, they kind of suffer because of it, right? Like, growing up in an orphanage looks like it fucking sucks, bro. Like,
it does.
You've got, like, you know,
but again, it goes back to the very first premise that we established, which is life is better than not life.
But I don't know. I feel like that holds the assumption of, like, we're already people that have lived 18 years, right? So we don't know anything but life, right? I don't know what it's like to be aborted, right?
Well,
I feel like it's just nothing. It's just nothing.
I think we can.
Right?
I think we can say with confidence that we see that life is better than not life. Yeah. Right? Because we're living, and we understand that if we weren't living, then it would be worse than where we are now. Right? Not suicidal. Yeah. So I actually enjoy life.
Yeah, no, me too. But Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've reached a dead end on this topic.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems like there's not much progression, and there hasn't been much progression because,
yeah.
you know, advocating for, you know, it's better.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I don't want to choose who gets aborted or not. I don't like, you know, I'm making these assumptions that, you know, a crackhead wouldn't want to have a child, but at the end of the day, that's her choice, right? And I respect that, right? And I think that at the end of the day, the people that decide who gets brought into the world or not, the people that should have that responsibility are the women and the men that are responsible for raising those children. And if that woman doesn't want that kid, she should have the ability to not raise that kid, you know?
Yeah, I think we.
We're beating the dead horse at this point, right? Yeah.
I'll do some studying on it, and then we'll come back and revisit this topic.
I'm sure people love to hear us talk about it.
It's probably, I don't know if it's the most hot button issue in America, but it's definitely up there.
It's up there. Yeah, because it's the kind of thing where it's just all emotion. You know, there's no stats you can throw at people.
Well, I mean, I think you can logically reason it, but it just gets kind of confused with emotion.
Totally.
We'll leave that topic for
Should we talk
another
about
day.
gun control now?
Talk about gun control? All right.
Fuck it.
We'll just go from hot topic to hot topic.
Exactly.
Gun control. Okay, so one thing that I like to imagine is, what if we just erased all the guns in America and just could start over with our gun policy and how we regulate guns and how, you know, because America has so many gun killings.
Let's say we turn into like Japan, for example. Japan is a country where they have guns, right? But it's something like they have like about 100 or so gun owners throughout the country, right? Because the process to get that gun is so rigorous. Like, you need to be part of a gun club. You need to show that this is your hobby, and you need to keep that gun in a locked safe in the gun club. Nobody has guns at home. And you know how many gun deaths they have a year? It ranges between 0 and like 4.
Really?
Yeah. And they're mostly suicides.
Is it cultural?
Is it cultural?
I got to ask the question.
I don't know.
Because
we got that frontiersman, right? the manifest destiny.
Manifest destiny, yeah. Well, I don't know. I think it's, when you're comparing countries, you have to ask yourself, like, is it just because the culture is like that?
Yeah,
or
there's a million other factors that come into play. Right?
but I mean, can it be attributed?
Mm-hmm. But there's plenty of countries like Switzerland and Sweden have higher rates of gun ownership than America, right? In Switzerland, pretty much everybody's part of the reserve military, right? So all, fighting age men basically have a gun in the house, right? But they don't have bullets, right? They have bullets that are locked away in the militia armory, right? And in Sweden, a lot of people have guns because it's super rural, right? And, if you're living on a plot of 60 acres and there's bears all over the place, you're going to have a shotgun ready to go. But both of those countries have significantly lower rates of gun deaths than America. So, I mean, what do you think that America is just sort of an inherently violent country? And that even if we ban all guns, everyone's just going to be stabbing each other? Or if we ban all knives, everyone's just going to be hitting each other with rocks? Like I don't know. What do you think the root of the problem is here? Because we can agree on that America has a violence problem. Or like we have a lot of people that die and a lot of people that kill people, right?
Yeah, America has a violence problem. Well, right? I don't know. I think the amount of guns that America has contributes to the amount of people who, the amount of gun deaths per year. I mean, America has so many gun deaths.
It's a lot.
I don't know. I think the argument for it is, we're arming our government overthrow and all this stuff, and I think it's
a very small sect, I would say.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people who defend the Second Amendment,
Right.
But
I think the main reason that people own guns is because they like guns. Like, they like to shoot them. And it feels cool.
I mean,
like, I've shot guns.
It's fun.
Dude. Blow shit up. Dude.
Really, it's
tight.
You feel like you have so much power.
Yeah, dude. You're like, I just destroyed that shit. Bro.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons is cultural. I think there's a lot of people who like using guns because they like feeling strong and they like feeling protected.
And they're raised that way,
Yep.
right? You go out with your dad to the shooting range and teach you how to...
I did. I've killed a deer before, you know. I've learned how to use guns and, you know, I think it's a fun thing, but I've never, you know, thought I'm going to walk around in the streets with my gun so that I'm protecting myself, you know. Of course, that's because I live in a nice area.
Yeah.
But I think it's really cultural, if I can be completely honest. I think that the regulation is a big factor too. You know, who gets to buy the guns? Like I can go into, you know, a gun show and buy myself a gun right now.
Yeah.
But I really think it's cultural. I think people think that when they're in bad areas they need to carry guns, and I think, you know, people who live in bad areas need to carry guns. And I think when you have so many guns in a certain area, someone's bound to shoot it, you know, and who knows who's at the end of the target. Like I was watching this YouTube video the other day, and it was a remarkable story. It was about this guy who was driving into a really bad part of Detroit. And he was dropping his friend over at a house, and he just gets shot by a shotgun just out of the blue. Yeah. And turns out there's this gang where its initiation is you got to kill a person. Yeah. You know. So, I mean, that's just one. He just
got popped. Yeah.
He just got hit.
That's just one American story right there.
Yeah,
right?
that's just one American story
across the whole country. Everywhere,
I really think, you know. I really think it's a cycle of poverty. There's people who are living in poor areas, and you know they get involved in all these drugs, and you know people have territories. And I'm not attributing all the gun deaths to gangs, but I think there's guns. But when you're surrounded by something like a gun, you know the gun's potential is to kill things.
That's all it is.
That's all it's for. Yes. That's the purpose of a gun.
Kill people.
To kill people, to kill animals, but you know
that's a hunting rifle, right?
Yeah, that's a hunting rifle.
An assault rifle is for killing people.
What's a pistol for?
Yeah,
to kill people. You're not going to kill any animals with a pistol. No. Well, I mean, maybe a rabbit or something, but who's going out?
Squirrel.
Yeah, exactly. But who's going out and using their pistol to kill squirrels?
Yeah.
No, I think the purpose of, I can say this, right? The purpose of a pistol is to kill humans. Yeah. And there's no other reason to have a pistol but to kill humans. And when you're surrounded by something like a pistol, it's just waiting to be fired and to be waiting to be used.
So I don't want to attack you, right?
Thanks, Erik.
That is not attacking. But do you guys have guns in this house? I mean,
maybe I do,
maybe you do, maybe I don't. Hypothetically, if you did, why? Why do you have them?
Well, in the hypothetical, it would be for protection.
Yeah. 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 Well, of course not. Of course not. Right.
But a fear of people like breaking into the house or something, you want to make sure that you have. I think really what it comes down to is if a person breaks into my house, I don't want to be caught with my pants down. You know what I mean? He has a shotgun. I need a shotgun. Add a shotgun. You know what I mean?
But I don't know. I feel like burglars, when they break in, they're here to steal stuff, right? And if you pull out a gun, you've just heightened it from a robbery to one of us is gonna die. It's either me or you, right? And I feel like pulling out a gun. Now all of a sudden that burglar is faced with the choice, either I'm going to die or he's going to die, right? So now for sure one of you guys is going to die, as opposed to before, even if that burglar has a gun, it doesn't really make sense to go in and murder people unless they're there to murder, right? Like they're there to steal and take stuff, right?
My goodness.
Not to kill.
I don't even think
not to kill.
I don't think that's relevant, Erik. And I'll tell you why I don't think it's relevant.
Yeah.
Because if a burglar's breaking into your house, are you just gonna let him steal your shit?
No, I'll come at him with a bat, right? And call the cops, right? But
man, I don't know. I would feel safer if I had a gun to combat the burglar who probably has a gun.
Right. But now all of a sudden that burglar sees that you have a gun, and he knows that you're gonna shoot him.
I don't know. I think if a burglar comes in, it's like, you're not considering, well, you know, maybe I should grab my bat because then maybe one of us won't die. I think it's a lot more fast paced.
Yeah, of course. You know, but I'm simplifying it, right?
Yeah, definitely simplifying it. But I mean, country like Sweden, if there's a burglar or something, he probably doesn't have a gun. Or like in Japan, right? If there's a burglar.
Yeah.
probably doesn't have a gun. But in America, it's like
Everybody's strapped all the time. Yeah.
Anyone can have a gun. And so, I don't know. I guess it's this vicious cycle where if everyone can have a gun, then I should also get a gun because what if they try and attack me?
Yeah.
Like the argument for having a well-formed militia, you know, I don't think that's really relevant anymore. We're not under tyranny at all.
And the American military would shit on all these fuckers,
goodness.
dude.
Yeah,
Are you kidding me? We have drones, bro. Like there wouldn't be dudes on the ground. They would just be bombs,
It'd be
bombs.
some guy on his computer.
Exactly, just a little nerd in Nevada, just sitting in a bunker somewhere, right? Just bombing the shit out of all these fuckers.
Yeah, no, the American military could just wipe out the entirety of
We
the
could
American
kill all of America right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
We couldn't do anything.
No, exactly. But I mean, so do you think that some regulation?
I didn't mean to
makes sense?
shit on your point, Eric. By the way, I didn't mean to
obviously
shit on
not.
your point.
I'm just bringing shit up, right?
Like I didn't want to say like maybe actually you know considering it now, if we like I said earlier, if in America not everyone had guns, and it'd be probably smarter just to bring a baseball bat.
Yeah. But so let me throw you this pitch to you. Do you feel like some regulation makes sense, right? Because let's agree that people shouldn't own tanks. Right?
Yeah. Did you know the guy on the 163, the highway 163? Okay.
What happened?
So this guy, I can't remember what it was, but he stole a tank from Miramar Air Base.
Yeah.
It was like running over cars on the
God.
163. And you know, have you ever played GTA 5?
Yeah.
It was like it was straight up something out of GTA 5.
That's nuts.
Kind of a side point. Look it up on your own because they have video recording
nuts.
of it.
I'll definitely do that. Yeah,
Crazy.
But
anyways,
so we can agree people shouldn't own tanks.
No,
right?
People shouldn't own tanks.
And people shouldn't own nukes, right? No nukes, right? So those are way up here, right? Yeah. So as we're making our way down, and let's say like a little shitty pistols at the very bottom, where do you draw the line, right? Because at a certain point you're making it to RPGs. Right. And, I'm not a gun guy, so I'm kind of talking out of my ass here. But like, at a certain right, you're at assault rifles. Right. And then you're at shotguns. Right. And then pistols. Right. So where do we draw that line where we say people shouldn't have this? Right. I think we can agree that we can't just wipe it all clean. We can't wipe it all clean. Right. We can't say no one has anything. So clearly some of it needs to be allowed. But where exactly do we draw that line?
Well, I think it's just irrelevant at this point.
Yeah?
Because there's so many guns circulating throughout America that there's no regulations really going to make any difference.
But like, I don't know. I feel like pushing that line, even if it's just one thing, right? Like after the Vegas shooting, Trump banned bump stocks, right? Which take a semi-automatic rifle
bump stocks
to a
whack, man.
fully automatic rifle, right? And that the only reason to have that is to mass murder a bunch of people, right? So I think we can both agree that
was probably a good play.
Banned, right? Like, right?
A good play.
So I don't know. I feel like inching, like if we, we can say that, it's impossible to get rid of all these guns. It's impossible to get rid of them, right? But I don't know. I feel like inching that border down the line of how dangerous a person can potentially become. Like it's a step in the right direction, right? That banning the most dangerous and most powerful gun that people have access to now makes people a little bit less dangerous, right?
I don't know, man. Again, like putting regulations on bump stocks, it seems like a smart play because there's no reason to have a fully automatic rifle other than to mass murder people, right? And that's what happened in.
He did, Yeah, he killed like 60, 70 people and like 600 people got shot. It was horrible, man. Yeah.
But, okay, and here's another thing. Anyone can do that, too. If they have the intent, they could straight up go buy. I'm sure there's still bump stocks circulating. I'm sure
you go to a gun show and you ask the guy, "Oh, I got you, buddy. It's down here."
Go
right?
to a pawn shop.
Yeah, exactly.
I got one of these.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's still you could still find one. Probably. Again, it just seems like in America, there's not much that can be done about guns. Start over. We can't go out and collect all the guns. I think it's impossible.
Yeah.
Just think about it. I mean, there's something like, I don't know the exact number, but for every one person in America, there's like a crap ton of guns.
Right.
You know.
But it's not evenly spread. Like
Yeah.
It's
one
a very
person might have like 86 guns.
Yeah,
or
it's a
something.
very small percentage of America that's very well armed, and the rest of America just kind of deals with the consequences. And
it's a difficult topic, man, because there's so many complexities in it.
Yeah, totally.
You know? And there's so many different things to tackle that, I don't know, it just seems a little bit overwhelming. But I really don't see any clear-cut solution and any good step in the right direction either that's actually going to make a difference.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know, banning bump stocks, I feel like that's one easy step. We can agree that it's right.
Is it really substantial?
Is it substantial? Probably not. Like, you know, but I feel like it's those sort of little steps that we have to make, right? Like we're in a deep hole now. We're in a deep gun hole, and we're not going to be able to jump out of it, right? The only way we can sort of raise ourselves up is just little by little, an inch of dirt at a time, right? So yeah, I don't know. But it's also the kind of thing where I don't really care about the issue. Like,
it's not my number one. That's for sure.
How does it like? It doesn't really affect the material quality of life of the American people. I think that healthcare is significantly more important in terms of lives of Americans, or, you know, immigration, or regulating banks,
and
or
again,
how our workplaces are ruled, right? All those issues impact us so much more. But the thing is, gun control, it's an easy way for the oligarchs to divide us.
Gun violence is caused by video games.
Right? Sure. Yeah, I think we can all agree on that,
we can all agree
right?
about that.
Ban Call of Duty first of all. Get that out of here. You know.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's such a dumb argument. It's like the dumbest argument ever.
It's so dumb.
It's like
it's so
politicians who just can't tackle the issue in other ways. Oh yeah, it's
video games.
Violent video games.
Yeah.
I don't know,
but if you look at the dudes who play video games, they're just these scrawny little nerds. You're like, they're not gonna do shit, bro. They're not doing shit.
No, not at all. I don't know, man. Again, it's one of those issues where it's like it's just gonna get pushed to the side because.
Well, I mean, I think that it's advantageous for the Democratic and the Republican parties to make it a public issue. Right?
Oh yeah, but is it actually? Should it be number one?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Because the thing is, when they have us divided on gun control and arguing like we are right and fucking lying and right, like we're ignoring all the other issues that they're like. They have this public fight about gun control and abortion, right? But all the other issues are done behind closed doors. And who's influencing that?
First, we got to talk about the limes, right?
The limes. Yes. Thick limes or thin limes, right?
Thick limes or thin limes. Yep. And then people just focus on that,
and everything else, it just gets
worse and worse.
And worse, right? And there are lobbyists that specialize in, you know, all these really boring topics like, you know, regulating Monsanto's copyrights on corn, right? Like no one really gives a shit about that because it's boring. It's so boring.
We can't attach emotions behind it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like no one's to argue about that, but it has such a bigger impact on the lives of Americans. You know?
Everyone has an opinion about gun control.
Yeah, exactly. But ask somebody about regulating banks.
Who cares?
I don't know, bro. I don't know.
Who knows about regulating banks?
Yeah, fuck
I know
that.
You do, Erik.
I do. Yeah, obviously, I bring it up all the time. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I honestly think we should have arrested all those Wall Street guys after
2008?
Not a single one went to... Well, one went to jail, but he was a guy from Switzerland who worked for Credit Suisse, so it wasn't even an American, right?
Instead, we give him a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Because too big to fail,
bail him out, right? And immediately the next year, they give themselves bonuses of millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Fuck those guys.
That was
yeah. Fuck 'em.
That was a pretty bad time, right?
Pretty bad.
2008.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What else you want to talk
next?
about? Yeah, I don't know, bro.
Let's go to the next hot button issue, right?
Immigration. Let's go for it.
You actually want to talk about immigration?
Let's go for it, bro. We're checking off the list, right?
Okay, let's talk about aliens, right? Let's try and
aliens.
Let's
make it a little weirder.
Up,
Okay. Let's go for it. You believe in aliens? I feel like there's so little chance that there aren't aliens.
What? Okay, well, alien just means anything.
Yeah.
So, you think Alex Jones is right when he says that we're creating humanoids? You heard about this?
What?
Okay.
You're gonna have to refresh me.
Let me
a
go
little bit.
back. Let me go back.
I'm not that big of an Alex Jones connoisseur.
Neither am I.
Yeah.
I just think he's entertaining. It's fun,
Yeah,
dude.
of course.
But okay, so
the big role model for both of us.
our viewership, if we had one,
skyrockets, right?
No, it doesn't skyrocket. It
Plummets. Yeah.
Right when we talk about Alex Jones, I don't know, man, it might be right.
Yeah, I don't know. You gotta make some good points about the lizard people, you know?
The frogs are turning
right,
gay.
Yeah.
Okay, humanoids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, World War II, Alex Jones taking DNA from putting them in human embryos, making half human, half apes.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Now,
right.
because the Nazis were obsessed with like creating.
Right.
So they were trying to create these humanoids, and now they're created, and now we have no idea what they're doing.
Oh, they're just out there.
It's out there.
They're one of us. They're hidden.
Yeah, we have just aliens wandering amongst us, like humanoid apes. So strong, dude. They're like.
Yeah.
I don't know. Pretty wacky.
Pretty wacky theory. Yeah. I mean, I don't really know how to respond
Yeah,
to it.
exactly.
To be honest.
That's how I am with these topics.
That's
Well, okay, I'll go
See,
to another.
Alex Jones, the arguments he makes are like so far removed from like
From
reality
reality, yeah.
that you're like,
Maybe it's possible.
I don't know where to start. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Alex Jones gonna rant about it for like an hour.
An hour,
And then you have
an
no
hour.
idea. You listen to it for an entire hour. You're like, what the hell did he just say?
Yeah. What just? Yeah.
What just happened? Okay,
just
so I got
happened?
another theory for you.
Oh, hit me.
So what he's saying in China, how long does it take to get an organ?
Be fast, bro.
You can get an organ like really fast. You can get a liver really fast, a heart really fast. America takes a long time. But what
China.
America's doing is they're taking abortions, right?
Mhm.
These babies who are going to be aborted, and they're taking their organs. Right? They're having the babies. They take them to the back room. They chop up the baby, put them on some ice, and then they sell the organs. What do you think about that?
I think that
That's a lot of money.
we would see some evidence, right? Other than Infowars, I think that if there were backroom like in the back of every Planet Parenthood, there's a special doctor that slices up babies and snips out their hearts and whatever. I feel like at least one time there would be, a break in that wall, like they're not that good at keeping secrets. And I think that if any journalist got a hint of that, they would go for that immediately. And it would be the headline of the Washington Post, headline of the New York Times, right? Like it would be much bigger news and more people would be reporting on it than just Alex Jones sitting in his basement,
I don't know. There was a governor of some place, I forget, basically said he had admitted that they
Virginia, right?
Virginia.
Yeah. I think I saw that clip. I seen that clip. Yeah.
Yeah, where he's like, we keep the babies comfortable. And whether we'll let the mother choose whether or not she wants to have the baby.
Yeah.
Or to keep the baby. Right? What do you think? That's a lot of money. You know how much money like a liver?
Yeah, but a baby's liver doesn't work as an adult liver. No, they're like that big, bro.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is okay. We need to step aside from the topic.
Yeah.
Let's go back to immigration.
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I'll talk to you about competition versus cooperation.
Okay.
All right.
I'm down.
So there's an idea.
By the way, I just wanted to say that a little bit piece of aliens and abortions, we won't ever talk about that again.
No, we will, bro. And we're selling supplements too. Check out the outlet.com. It's the best brain force power ever.
Alex
brain
Jones has
force.
brain force power. Oh my
brain
goodness.
force.
Yeah, to protect against the radioactive waves. They're trying
we got
turn
water
the Americans
filters. Get that
stupid.
fluoride out of your water. Yeah.
No, we won't sell that. We won't talk about it. I mean, we want this to be, promoting intellectual discussion.
Hey, man, aliens, pretty intellectual. All right. But so So
What are we talking about?
competition versus cooperation, right? So there's this idea, and I'm gonna kind of paint a straw man of American.
Take off my jacket.
All right. I'm gonna paint a straw man of American conservatives, and it's gonna be like weak and easy to attack, right? But I want you to point out where I'm wrong, right? Yeah, exactly. So American conservatives like to argue that competition is what makes this country and the world great, right? Is all these different businesses competing and, these capitalists vying for power and fighting in the market and that's what makes everything great, right? But I think that's
capitalism.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's the pitch, right, for capitalism, right? Is that it's competition that makes everything necessary, right? But if you actually look at what companies are, right, and what a country is all these people cooperating, right? Like a company is just a structured way for people to work in a team and produce some sort of good or service, right? And the main mode there is cooperation. Yeah, now people in that company are competing and vying for spots, right? And trying to get that promotion, right? But at the end of the day, a function of a company isn't to compete. It's to cooperate, right? It's to make a network that allows people spread across a geographic area, across the country, across the world even, and allows them to cooperate. Like the reason that we all have access to Coca-Cola is not because Pepsi is there fighting against Coca-Cola, but because Coca-Cola has set up an infrastructure that allows a network of distributors and producers and HR reps and, business people basically to cooperate to produce this good and service, right? And it's the same thing with pretty much any institution in this country, right? Or in the world even. America is we compete against other countries, we have a trade war with China, we go against in all these wars, right? But the main function of America is to allow us as a country to cooperate and create a mesh where we all live good lives basically. I don't know, that last point was bad, but
well, no, I mean the first part was great.
Right,
yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do see what you're saying.
That even though competition is a part of it, the main function is cooperation, right? And that's really what humans are designed to do best, right? If you look back to hunter-gatherers, right? The base unit of human society was the tribe, right? Yeah. It's 50 to 100 people that live together, that work together, that eat together, and they cooperate to survive, right? Humans can't really live alone, right? You never saw it. There were never hermits in hunter-gatherer times. Everybody was part of a group.
It was necessary
and
for
it was
survival.
necessary, right? Because that's the way we work, right? We work in teams. That we work by dividing up and specializing in different tasks, right? The biggest, strongest guys are the ones that go out and hunt bison, right? The most caring, loving people are the ones that raise the children. And together, we create a better society. Not because we're competing with each other, but because we're cooperating with each other.
Yeah, well, I think things change over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
In America, I think our competition between companies has led to products.
Mm-hmm.
So if hard right turn and went all cooperation, what's going to
I'm not advocating for any sort of change. I'm just
identifying
look like a change of perspective.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That when you look at companies, they're not machines for competition. They're machines for cooperation.
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah, within the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because if you have a company that's just competing all the time, then
well, it would be impossible, right?
Yeah.
Like if every single person in the company refuses to work with other people and is just trying to vie for power and one up one another, that company is going to fail, right? Cooperation is completely necessary for any company to succeed. And, we talk about these great products that come from these companies, right? It's not because other companies are offering other products and then all of a sudden these new better products just magically appear, right? The reason we have these new better products and goods and services is because people within that company are able to cooperate, to specialize, to create and craft a new better product, right? So even though, the other company might be the catalyst for that change, for that new product, at the end of the day, what brings that product to the consumer is the cooperation of the people within the company.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the competition aspect comes from when your counterparts, like the Pepsi to Coke, starts making better Pepsi, and more people like Pepsi than they like their Coke.
Mm-hmm.
And so it takes the cooperation of Coke to compete against Pepsi.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's like a balance, right?
Yeah.
Of how much do you compete and how much do you... Well, yeah, within the workplace, it has to be all cooperation, right? Because if, one guy slips up, if he's not, doing a job, then the whole system can't run, right? So it must be cooperation. But when it's within the economy, right, within the market of, carbonated drinks, right, you need to have that competition to keep up with Coke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Keep up with Pepsi, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, right? That having competition within a market is necessary to bring good, cheap products to the consumer, right? But I just think that it's important to recognize that a majority of what we do in our everyday lives is cooperation, right? Like if you look at how society functions, like all these institutions are ways that we've learned to cooperate with one another. Like when you go into a grocery store, there's a certain way you need to act. You get a shopping cart. You go out. If you need help, you ask one of the employees. You load your stuff up. You wait in line.
Yeah.
Right. You pay. Right. There's all these
you couldn't
established.
Just go in there and start yelling.
Right, yelling and taking food. Right.
Food,
that would be competition. Right. If you go in there, I'm gonna get as much food as possible. Fuck all these other guys. Right. Going in there is just taking stuff and running out of there. Right. That's stealing.
It's like Black Friday.
Yeah.
Right?
Black Friday.
It's mayhem.
Exactly. Mayhem. It doesn't work. Right. That's like the ultimate competition, right?
Yeah.
But
who gets all the TVs?
Exactly. I need 4 TVs, right? But like, what makes society possible, and especially broader society, where we don't know everybody we interact with, we're not able to recognize and gossip about everybody we interact with. In order for that society to function, it's these kind of broad myths and rules that allow us to cooperate, right?
Yeah, well, that's a really good change of perspective.
Yeah,
because I guess we always I see most structures as competitive, and that it's a race for what can benefit me. But if every person always had that mindset, then nothing would get done.
Nothing would get done. Right?
Nothing would get done. And so it takes the cooperation of a society in order to benefit the society.
Totally.
So I don't know. It's a good point.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about something in a similar vein, right? And this is an idea that comes from the book *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari, which is my favorite book of all time. Totally recommend anyone that's listening. I recommend it for you too, right? And it talks about collective myths, right? And how these myths allow us to cooperate in a society, right? And so he starts by talking about what hunter-gatherer societies look like. And basically within that small group of 50 to 100 people that humans used to live in, within that group, you're able to self-regulate, right? And that's where gossiping and language really comes from. Is if someone's not pulling their weight, everybody talks shit about them, and eventually they get ostracized, or they learn to shape up and pull their weight, right? And within that small group of people, 50 to 100 people, you're able to kind of self-regulate through gossip, right? And if you think about our lives and our groups of people, you're kind of only able to know 50 to 100 people. Like if you think about Scripture Ranch High School, we don't talk about everybody, right? But there's a group of people that we talk about gossiping. Oh, she's fucking him, and he's fucking her. And I heard he Xander raped some girl, right? Like right there. I'm willing to say it, bro.
All right.
Yeah, like we are able to regulate within that group of 50 to 100 people, right?
And the people that up.
They get ostracized.
They get pushed out.
Exactly. But now that we live in bigger societies, right? Where we interact with way more than 50 to 100 people, right? Every cashier, every person on the road, right? Every person that we interact with, we're not able to regulate them the same way, right? We're not able to gossip about drivers on the road, right? Or we're not able to gossip about some politician in Washington and get them to shape up, right? So the only way we're able to live in a society where we interact with more than 50 to 100 people is through these collective myths, right? So let me ask you, what exactly is Coca-Cola, right? Because we say it's a company, okay, right? But they could fire all the people, hire new people, right? And it would still be Coca-Cola. Is it the buildings? No, because they could sell all those buildings, and
it's the appearance.
Right. And we could say it's the logo, right? But Coca-Cola's changed their logo many times, right? So what exactly is Coca-Cola? There's nothing.
Coca-Cola is a soda brand,
right,
that provides drinks.
That's the easy way of saying it. But like, what physically in the world is Coca-Cola? Is it the offices? Is it the people? Is it the cans themselves? Because all of those things can be wiped out, right? We can get rid of all the Coke cans in the world, or we could fire all of the Coke employees in the world. We could sell all of their offices, right? But at the end of the day, we have this idea of what Coca-Cola is in our heads, right? And that's that myth, right? That we all collectively believe that Coca-Cola makes these drinks. They come in cans or red cans, right? And as long as we all believe in that myth, it's able to be an institution.
Well, yeah, and that's let me draw a connection here.
Mm-hmm.
Money.
Yeah.
Right. If everyone, because money in your hand, right? Let's say I have a $20 bill in my hand. What's the cost of materials of that $20 bill?
Less than $1, probably.
Or less than $20, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah, less than 20. Yeah.
Less than $20, or less than $100. Let's say we got a Benjamin in our hand.
Mm-hmm.
We, as a society, have collectively agreed that this Benjamin is worth $100.
Right. So that's one of those myths.
If everyone had stopped believing in the actual value of currency, society would fall apart.
Right.
Society would fall apart in an instant.
Yeah.
Right? I learned about this in my history class. Props to Mr. Humphreys. He explained very well that it is necessary for the beliefs collectively that money has a certain value. If that value is not collectively agreed upon, then money has no worth. Money is just a piece of paper. It's different from when we were on the species, right? When we had actual gold, like I could take that $100 and I could go into the bank and say, give me $100 worth of gold, and they have to give it to me. Yeah. Now it's on paper.
Yeah. Right? No gold standard.
No gold standard at all. And so it's a collective belief of the society that the money that I'm holding, the Benjamin I got in my hand, is actually worth $100.
Right. And so that's one of those collective myths.
Is it for all, Coca-Cola? Is it for whatever company? What is it? Is it also attributed to like guns?
Even nations,
really?
Right? Like
nations.
What is America?
Definitely. What is America?
Is it the flag? Is it the land itself? Is it the people? Right? You can strip away all of those different aspects that you might say are America, but at the end of the day, it's because all Americans believe in America, that we are a country, that the country exists, right? So that's the way we're able to structure our society outside of groups that we can directly interact with, is by believing in these big collective myths, right? Like Coca-Cola is a company, America's a country, right? Money is worth something, right? All of these collective myths is what provide the umbrella structure that allow us to live and navigate in the society where we don't know everybody we interact with, right?
Would you say a collective myth or collective idea? Because I don't know. Myth kind of has a second,
Myth has a kind of a
like it's fake,
imaginary, but yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, can you pin down exactly what any of those things are?
Well, I know if you removed all of the properties of Coca-Cola, then it would cease to be Coca-Cola.
I don't know. I feel like
if I stripped down everything that Coca-Cola was, right? The only thing that'd be left is the memory,
right?
And that would be the abstraction of Coca-Cola, so the abstraction does exist,
right? I would call that a myth, right? The fact that you strip everything away, right? Let's say while we were recording this podcast, Coca-Cola sold all of its production plants, all of its suppliers, fired all of its employees, and just cashed out for its shareholders, right? we are still sitting here believing in Coca-Cola, right?
It exists because
it's in our minds.
Because it's in our mind, yeah.
Right? And so I feel like that's a collective myth, right? And there's tons of things that allow that are these sort of myths that allow us to cooperate on a massive scale. Like,
absolutely.
Like a war, for example.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Why would all these Americans go off to Europe and fight in World War II?
Freedom.
Because we believe in this myth that this is a war we need to fight, right? And that we need to serve our country, right? And that it's necessary and it's patriotic to do, right? But you kind of strip away all the physical things, right? And what's left is just this idea in all of our minds, right? And we have tons and tons and tons of these ideas, right? Like, even rules of the road, right? We should drive on the right side. Yeah. Nothing actually says, there are laws that say you need to drive on the right side of the road, but nothing's stopping me from just crossing the median and driving on the left side.
Yeah, but we
don't, because we believe that that's the way we need to drive, right?
Well, yeah, and it's been this rule that's been set in place that people follow for cooperation of the society.
Right. And that's the only way we're able to function, is by having these myths that we all collectively believe in.
Yeah,
right?
having these...
Because without them, everything would be anarchy, right?
Yeah, if we just couldn't have ideas of ways to govern ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Then everything would be chaos.
Totally, yeah.
Man, that's that's like the idea of abstractions, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's,
That's a really cool thought.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's, if the rules that we, like going to a shopping center and buying something, right? If we had just walked in and started yelling and pushing people and all of that,
taking stuff out of
their
carts.
We'd be ostracized from society.
Exactly.
We'd be put in jail.
Exactly.
Put in jail.
Yeah.
Because you're not a functioning member of society.
The myth of the law, right? Like,
well, it's written down.
But you get rid of all those papers and the law would still exist, right? You burn the whole Library of Congress and the cops would still go out and enforce those laws and arrest the people they feel like they deserve to be arrested, right? Like,
So
you can look out throughout society and there's all these, big established things that we feel like are so concrete, but the only reason they're concrete is because we all believe in them collectively.
Yeah, so the abstract is the reason why we have the concrete. And if you can't separate the abstract, but you can separate the concrete, right? Very philosophical too.
Yeah.
It's a very, because talking about abstractions, the concrete. Yeah, well, I don't know, man. It's just a weird thought. Like, if you had just removed all the physical things, people would still believe in Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Think this is a good place to wrap up the podcast? Or you want to keep going?
Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Not really.
Went to Slab City.
No way.
Yeah, I did.
Was it?
It was alright,
Is your second time? Third time?
Second time now. Yeah, like we went to, it was just me and Will.
What is Slab City?
Slab City, alright. So Slab City is essentially like...
Give me your pitch.
My pitch is Slab City. I don't know, man. After this trip, my rating went down a little bit.
Wow, what happened, dude?
Well, it was, like when we first pulled up, went to Salvation Mountain. Okay, first of all, let's explain what Slab City is, right? So
it's just...
It's a weird place, right? Basically, it's a bunch of land out in the desert outside of Nyland, California, out in the Inland Empire, that's owned by, I think it's like the California Teachers Pension Fund, right? And basically, it's completely useless land, and basically someone donated it to this fund, and they're gonna sell it eventually if someone wants to buy it, but no one wants to buy it because there's a bunch of homeless people living on it, right? And it's basically a city without laws, and not just laws, but without rules, right? Like, this is a place where you go in, there's no building permits, everything is built out of trash and trailers and RVs, and there's no laws against murder or drugs. I mean, obviously there are, because it's still in California, but the police don't go in there and enforce anything because nobody talks to the police.
No one to enforce the laws, then
the laws don't exist, right? And it is just, it's like an example of anarchy, right? Like, libertarians like to argue that, without laws, everything is going to work out perfectly, right? But in this place, it is just murder city, bro. Like me and Will, right? We went to this place called East Jesus, right? Which is like kind of an art gallery, right? Where it's just over in the corner of Slab City. And these people actually own the land, and it's basically a bunch of artists that live on this land in a bunch of trailers and just create weird installations. Like they got a giant elephant made out of tires, and they've got, a plane that's just halfway in the ground and painted and covered in beads, and they got like old cars standing on their ends filled with like mannequins and stuff. Just lots of weird, crazy, psychedelic desert art, basically. And me and Will, we're wandering around, and we found our way back behind the place where we're supposed to go. Like they had a wall basically that said, do not pass here, right? And we wandered, around it, not realizing that we crossed that wall. And so we're like back in basically the houses of all the artists that live there, and we're just going through and sitting on their couches and peeking into their trailers and like, oh my god, stuff stop, right? And eventually we see a guy like come out of one of the trailers, and he's wearing like a full length dress and like a black hood on, and he comes over to us and he's like, "Who you with?" And we're like, that's a problem. Believe, bro, like we're scared as shit. Like this guy's got like murder in it, right? And we're like, all right, we're going, bro. Like we're out of here, dude. Yeah, we're gone. He's like, yeah, this is private. This is all private property. This is felony trespassing. Like we're like, bro, we're like already walking. We're walking, and he's like following us. You're like, yeah, bro, you guys are lucky that you guys came a day, or else I would have greeted you with a shotgun. Like, and he's like, like some of the Slab City residents, are all crackheads, so we have to shoot them if they come onto the property. And like you look in his eyes, you tell he shot
someone before.
Like he has done what he's talking about. And so eventually, he brings us back to the art gallery, and everything's fine because pretty non-threatening white teenagers, but like you could tell, like if we did
imagine if it was like late at night,
if it was
something.
Nighttime, like he would have come out with a shotgun, right? Jeez. And he probably shot us. And out in Slab City, nothing would have happened. Oh, there would just be a body in the desert, and it would rot away, and that's it, right?
Goodness,
it was nuts, man. And
dude, I remember you were telling me to go on that trip, Erik.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm glad I said no, man.
Yeah. But eventually we found our way over to the corner. We found our own little campsite. We ended up not spending the night just because. Yeah, no, it's not because it's shaken up. It just got boring,
Really?
Like, Will got a little sussed out. We went and hung out with some of the meth heads by, an abandoned pool it was a skate park. And, we sat at their bar for about 10 minutes, and Will was like,
that's terrifying.
Yeah, it was pretty scary, but like, I felt like
I've never seen a person who has murder in their eyes.
Yeah, like it was scary, bro.
Especially him, dude. He was wearing like a black dress and a black
Yeah,
hood.
exactly. And like, I don't know, man. Like, I was chilling with it, but Will got real sussed out, and like,
oh yeah,
I don't know. I felt like it was important to bring him there, teach him a lesson, because he's been getting into drugs, right? And so I wanted to show him that lifestyle,
this is the path,
right?
Yeah.
Like if your only goal is to go out and get high, you'll end up in the desert smoking meth with these folks, But like he received the lesson and understood. Yeah. It was a little scary. I gotta be honest. And at this one point, after we left the skate park, we're like just driving in my shitty Honda Civic, going over these bumpy dirt roads, right? And we turn off and we go down a less populated dirt road. And like 2 minutes into going down this road, a quad comes over the hill, right? Like an ATV, and there's two guys on it dressed like in full military garb, right? And one of them, the one in the back, has a shotgun on his back, right? And we're just like driving, and we like slow down because we're like, oh my god, what's going on? And these two guys, they skirt up to the side of our car, and they're like, just gesturing that we just get out of there. And I'm like, Going, bro.
Will do.
I'm going. Yeah, right. Just
My goodness,
like,
dude.
yeah, and like these guys were scary. Like,
Really?
like they had their like masks, like ski masks on, but I just saw like their eyes. Once again, murder in those eyes, bro.
Wow.
Like they were,
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
it was like some gang shit, bro. Like you go down the
Jeez,
wrong road,
those are the people who
fuckers on
run.
quads come out.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez, they probably run Slab City.
Yeah, seriously. It was like some gang shit. It was like,
Goodness.
this is our territory, bro. Get the fuck out of here, you know? And, you know, sus, bro. Sus. But, you know, I feel like...
I have no response to that at
yeah,
all.
like, it was, you know, but at the same time, it's a lot of nice art. A lot of nice art.
Hey, you going back?
Some of the, I mean, I probably will, to be honest, right?
My goodness.
Just because, like...
Bad lad.
You know, it's such an experience, you know, like living in, you know, society where we have these collective myths, right? And going out to a place where there are no laws, no rules. Every single person has just got their own intentions and own, you know, their own story to tell, and nothing holding them back is like,
That is crazy. That is
yeah.
dang, dude. City, man, I'm not going. I'm not going.
Yeah.
Next time you go, do not invite me.
Yeah, all right, bet. Sounds good, bro.
Especially after that. I mean, I've heard that, like, yeah, very out there. But, dude, you had, like, a first-hand experience.
Yeah, it was a little.
The first
spooky.
guy was probably more scary than the other two guys.
No, honestly, those two guys,
other two
with the
guys?
shot, like, because they
Ski
were
masks?
they had like full camouflage, like they were fully
They look like
camoed out.
military. They look
yeah,
like,
but they
like a regime.
But they had like different tags of like skulls, and like one guy like on his back it just
Bad
said,
Max,
it said
dude.
fuck off, right? Like just on his back, right? And I was like, oh, we're gone, bro. Don't worry, we're not.
Man.
Yeah, it was like as close to Mad Max as it gets, right? Just fuckers.
You're
right?
in the desert, too.
in the desert, right? Like, yeah.
ATV shotguns.
Yeah.
All right, dude. I think we gotta wrap up this podcast.
Yeah.
All right, this has been the Gabe and Erik Show, the Outlet Podcast.